The footsteps outside the attic door stopped. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was heavy. For 3 weeks, Eulalia had been a prisoner in the Blackwood estate, locked away by a father who called her a guest, but looked at her like a meal. But the voice speaking through the wood tonight isn't the father, it's deep, elegant, ancient, and it knows exactly what she is. He calls her a source, a human whose blood doesn't just feed vampires, it makes them gods. Now the door is opening, and the man stepping out of the shadows has eyes that burn crimson. He says he's there to protect her from his family, but as he inhales her scent, Eulalia realizes the terrifying truth. The king wants to kill her, but the prince, he looks like he wants to keep her forever. Dust motes danced in the last sliver of amber light cutting through the small round window. Eulalia traced her finger along the glass, leaving a clean path through years of grime. 3 weeks in this attic, and she'd memorized every creak of the ancient floorboards, every water stain on the ceiling's exposed beams. The room smelled of mothballs and something older, like books left too long in a damp basement. A single bed with iron rails stood against the wall, its mattress thin but serviceable, a porcelain wash basin, a trunk for her meager belongings. Nothing else. She pressed her ear against the door, solid oak with iron bands, listening for footsteps. Rowena would bring dinner soon. The woman never spoke, only slid the tray through the small hatch at the bottom of the door, her eyes averted. A temporary arrangement, Thaddeus Blackwood had called it 3 weeks ago, his smile never reaching his eyes. For your protection, Miss Covell. Protection, Eulalia's mouth twisted. The word tasted like a lie. She returned to the window, her only connection to the outside world. The sun sank behind the dense pines surrounding the estate, shadows stretching like fingers across the manicured lawn. The temperature in the room dropped noticeably, as it did every evening. She wrapped her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, the wool scratchy against her skin. Her stomach growled. The meals came at irregular times, a subtle reminder that her life was no longer her own. The grandfather clock in the hall below chimed 6 times, its deep resonance vibrating through the floorboards. Something felt different tonight. The air seemed charged, like the stillness before a thunderstorm. Eulalia rubbed her arms, goosebumps rising despite the layers she wore. A sound from below, not the usual shuffling of the house staff, but something swift and purposeful. Footsteps too light to belong to the hulking Lucian Varkos, who sometimes stood guard in the hallway, different from Rowena's hesitant tread. Someone new had entered the house. The footsteps paused directly below her room, then impossibly seemed to vanish altogether. Eulalia held her breath, straining to hear. The silence stretched, unnatural and complete, as if the entire house were holding its breath with her. A soft scraping sound came from the corridor outside her door, not at the height of the doorknob, but lower, as if someone were examining the peculiar symbols carved into the threshold. The ones Thaddeus had insisted were family traditions. "Hello?" she called, hating the tremor in her voice. "Rowena?" No answer, but the scraping stopped. Eulalia backed away from the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. The floorboards didn't creak. Whoever stood outside moved with uncanny stillness. "I know someone's there," she said. Louder this time, her voice bounced off the sloped ceiling, sounding braver than she felt. "What do you want?" A pause, then a voice, male, rich as aged whiskey, with an accent she couldn't place. Something old world, elegant, curious, he said, the word barely audible through the thick door. Very curious indeed. Fear and curiosity warred within her. This wasn't Thaddeus or his enforcer Lucian. This voice lacked the cruel edge that characterized the Blackwood patriarch's speech. "Who are you?" Eulalia demanded, inching closer to the door, despite her better judgment. Another pause. Someone who shouldn't be here. A hint of amusement colored the words. Just as I suspect you shouldn't be locked in the north attic. Her breath caught. In 3 weeks, no one had acknowledged her captivity. The staff averted their eyes. Rowena brought food but never spoke. Thaddeus visited only to remind her of her delicate situation and the protection he offered. Can you? The words stuck in her throat. Hope was dangerous. Can you open the door? That depends, the voice replied. Closer now, as if he pressed against the wood. On what sealed it? Eulalia frowned. It's just locked. With a key. A soft chuckle. No, miss. Forgive me. I don't know your name. This door bears markings. Old magic. Binding spells meant to keep something in, or perhaps someone out. Magic. The word should have sounded ridiculous. Yet in this ancient house, with its whispers and shadows and the strange symbols carved everywhere, it felt plausible. Eulalia, she said. Eulalia Covell. Everyone calls me Leah. Eulalia. He pronounced each syllable deliberately, as if tasting her name. Tell me, how did you come to be a guest in Blackwood Manor? The way he said guest weighted with irony made her trust him a fraction more. I'm not a guest. I'm a prisoner. The admission hung in the air between them. Thaddeus Blackwood offered me a job translating old texts. When I arrived, he locked me here. Says it's for my protection. Protection. The stranger echoed, his tone darkening. How very like Thaddeus to twist words to his purpose. The temperature in the room plummeted suddenly. Eulalia's breath fogged in front of her face. The hairs on her arms stood on end. Stand back from the door, Eulalia Covell, the stranger commanded, his voice no longer conversational but resonant with authority. Eulalia retreated to the far wall, her back pressed against the peeling wallpaper. The symbols carved into the doorframe began to glow with a faint blue light. The air thickened, pressure building in her ears as if she'd descended deep underwater. The door didn't splinter or break. Instead, the wood seemed to shudder, the blue light flaring briefly before extinguishing altogether. The lock clicked, and the door swung inward with terrible slowness. He stood in the doorway, tall and still as a statue. Not the monster her imagination had conjured, but a man perhaps in his 30s, with aristocratic features and eyes so dark they appeared black in the dim light. His skin was pale, almost luminous. He wore a charcoal suit that looked both expensive and somehow out of time, like something from another century updated for modern wear. Impossible, he murmured, his gaze fixed on her with unsettling intensity. After all this time, Eulalia swallowed hard. Who are you? He stepped into the room, his movements fluid and precise, no wasted energy, nothing human in his grace. Cyprian, he said simply. Cyprian Blackwood. Blackwood, her stomach clenched. Are you related to Thaddeus? A shadow crossed his face. Unfortunately, he is my father, though he would deny the connection. He glanced around the attic, taking in the sparse furnishings with a frown. He has kept you here how long? 3 weeks. Eulalia found herself relaxing slightly, though she couldn't explain why. Something about his presence felt safe, despite the danger that radiated from him. You're nothing like him. We share blood, nothing more. Cyprian moved to the window, looking out at the now dark grounds. I've been away for some time. I returned tonight and caught your scent. My scent. Eulalia frowned. He turned to her, something ancient and hungry flickering behind his eyes. Cinnamon and old books. Sunshine on skin. His nostrils flared slightly. And something else. Something rare. The way he looked at her like she was water in a desert sent a shiver down her spine that wasn't entirely fear. "What does Thaddeus want with you?" Cyprian asked, moving closer. The air around him seemed colder, as if he drew the warmth from the room. "I don't know," she admitted. "He hired me to translate some old family documents, Latin and Greek mostly. But once I arrived, he changed, became obsessed with my bloodline, my family history." Cyprian went utterly still. "Your family. Tell me about them." "There's not much to tell. Orphaned young. Raised by my grandmother in Romania until she died. I came to America for college and stayed." Romania. The word seemed to confirm something for him. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they had changed, the irises now ringed with an impossible crimson. "Eulalia Koval, do you know what my father is?" Her heart stuttered. "A collector. A wealthy eccentric. A predator," Cyprian corrected, his voice gentle, despite the harsh word. "As am I. But unlike him, I do not hunt the innocent." He moved closer, and Eulalia found herself unable to step away. Not from fear, but from a strange magnetic pull she couldn't explain. "Your blood," he said softly. "It sings to me. Do you understand what that means?" She shook her head, transfixed by his eyes, by the impossible color bleeding into them. "It means you are sanguis vinculum, a blood bond. Exceedingly rare." His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek without touching. "My father has imprisoned you because he sensed what you are. What you could be to one of our kind. Your kind." The question was barely a whisper. Cyprian's lips parted in answer, revealing what his careful speech had concealed. Fangs, delicate and sharp, extending where normal canines should be. Eulalia's knees weakened. She should scream, run. Instead, she found herself reaching toward him, drawn by an instinct older than reason. "You're not afraid," he observed, wonder in his voice. "I should be," she admitted. "Yes." His smile was both beautiful and terrible. "You should." From somewhere below came the sound of breaking glass, followed by a roar of rage that couldn't possibly have come from a human throat. "He knows I'm here," Cyprian said, suddenly urgent. "He knows I've found you." He extended his hand. "I can protect you, Eulalia Koval, but you must choose to come with me now." The house trembled with another inhuman howl. Time was running out. "What happens if I go with you?" she asked, her fingers inches from his. Cyprian's eyes burned crimson in the darkness. "You live. You become something neither of us yet understands." His voice dropped lower. "But if you stay, my father will drain you dry to ensure I never have what he could not." Their fingers touched, cold against warm. The contact sent a jolt through Eulalia's body, like electricity but sweeter, more primal. "Choose," Cyprian whispered, as heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs toward the attic. "Choose now." "Yes." Eulalia's fingers closed around Cyprian's. The word was barely past her lips when he pulled her against his chest, one arm wrapping around her waist. "Hold on," he whispered, his breath cool against her ear. The attic door splintered open. A massive silhouette filled the frame, broad-shouldered and terrible, eyes gleaming like molten gold in the darkness. Thaddeus Blackwood's roar shook dust from the rafters. "Son, return what is mine." Cyprian's grip tightened. "She was never yours, father." With impossible speed, he swept Eulalia toward the window. Glass shattered around them as they plunged into the night air. Her scream caught in her throat as the ground rushed up. Then suddenly they were soaring upward, Cyprian's supernatural strength defying gravity itself. The wind whipped her hair, stinging her eyes as they moved through the darkness at a speed no human could match. Below them, the mansion shrank to a dollhouse, its windows blazing with angry light. Eulalia buried her face against Cyprian's shoulder, his body solid and cold as marble beneath her trembling hands. "I've got you," he murmured, his voice somehow audible, despite the rushing air. "You're safe now, safe." The word seemed absurd. She'd just placed her trust in a creature with fangs, who'd carried her off into the night sky like something from a fever dream. And yet, pressed against him, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing, did vampires need to breathe? She felt an inexplicable calm beneath her terror. They descended into a dense forest, moonlight filtering through ancient pines. Cyprian set her gently on her feet, but kept one hand at her elbow as her legs threatened to buckle. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice thin in the vast silence. "About 15 miles from the estate. Far enough to give us time, close enough to watch their movements." He scanned the trees, nostrils flaring slightly. No one followed. Not yet. Eulalia hugged herself against the night chill, reality crashing down around her. "You're a vampire." The words sounded ridiculous spoken aloud. His lips curved in a humorless smile. "Yes, and your father, also a vampire, though he would prefer the term Nightwalker or Blood Elder. He finds vampire crude." Cyprian's expression darkened. "My father finds many things crude that I consider essential. Mercy, for instance." A twig snapped somewhere in the darkness. Cyprian's head whipped toward the sound, body tensing. After a moment, a deer stepped into a patch of moonlight, froze upon seeing them, then bounded away. "We can't stay here," he said. "Dawn is hours away, but my father's reach is long, and Lucien tracks better than any hound." "Lucien, my father's enforcer, the one who's been watching you." Ice slid down Eulalia's spine. "The man with the scar, he's been following me for weeks." Cyprian nodded. "Lucien Varkos. He's ancient and vicious, even by our standards." He took her hand again, his touch gentler now. "There's a place not far from here, a sanctuary of sorts." They moved through the forest, Cyprian guiding her around obstacles she could barely see in the darkness. Questions tumbled through her mind, each more urgent than the last. "Why me?" she finally asked. "Your father said something about my blood. What makes it special?" Cyprian's pace slowed. "It's not just your blood, though that's part of it. It's what you are." He glanced at her, eyes reflecting silver in the moonlight. "Have you never wondered why you feel different? Why ordinary life never quite fit?" The question struck a chord so deep within her that Eulalia nearly stumbled. All her life, she'd felt like an observer, watching the world through glass, never quite belonging. "What am I?" she whispered. "A source." He said the word with reverence. Rare even in the old days, nearly extinct now. Humans whose blood and essence can sustain our kind without diminishing, without the need to kill. "A blood bag with refills," she said bitterly. He stopped abruptly, turning to face her. "No, that's what my father would reduce you to. A source is so much more. Your blood doesn't merely feed, it transforms, strengthens." In the ancient times, a vampire bonded with a source could walk in daylight, could heal injuries that would destroy others of our kind. The forest seemed to hold its breath around them. "And that's what you want from me? My blood?" Something flashed in his eyes, hunger, quickly suppressed. "What I want." He shook his head. "What I need is to keep you from my father. What happens after that is your choice." They emerged from the trees into a small clearing. At its center stood a stone cottage, its walls covered in climbing vines, its windows dark. It looked abandoned, forgotten by time. "It doesn't look like much," Cyprian said, "but the protections are strong." He led her to the door, which opened at his touch. Inside, the cottage was a single-room stone floor, a hearth, simple wooden furniture. Dust covered every surface, but beneath it lay unexpected touches of elegance, silver candlesticks, a carved chest, tapestries faded with age. Cyprian moved to the hearth, and, with practiced efficiency, built a fire. Warmth gradually pushed back the chill as flames licked at the dry wood. "This place has stood for centuries," he said, straightening. "It was a gift from a source to her protector long ago. Another vampire and his food supply." Eulalia couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "Her name was Elaine," Cyprian said quietly. "And she loved Darius enough to defy her family, her church, everything she knew. They lived here for 20 years before witch hunters found them." The flames cast dancing shadows across his face, highlighting the hollow of his cheeks, the sharp line of his jaw. For the first time, Eulalia noticed the exhaustion in his eyes. "When did you last eat?" she asked. His gaze snapped to hers, then away. "I manage." "That's not an answer." 3 weeks. He moved to a window, peering out into the darkness. "Animal blood sustains barely, but it doesn't satisfy." The implication hung in the air between them. Eulalia's hand rose unconsciously to her throat. "I won't hurt you," he said, still looking away. "I've spent 2 centuries learning control. 200 years. The number staggered her. "How old are you?" "I was turned in 1783. I was 26. She tried to process this, that the beautiful, dangerous man before her had walked the earth while America was still a newborn nation, had seen empires rise and fall. "Why did your father turn you?" Cyprian's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Thaddeus Blackwood isn't my father by blood. He's my sire, the one who made me vampire. He found me dying on a battlefield. Thought I showed promise." His fingers traced a pattern on the window frame. "I was a disappointment almost immediately. Because you wouldn't kill. Because I questioned. Because I believed our kind could exist without leaving corpses in our wake." He turned back to her, firelight reflecting in his eyes. "My father sees humans as cattle. I see the potential for something different." A sudden gust of wind rattled the cottage door. Cyprian was across the room in an instant, tense and alert. "Is it them?" Eulalia asked, heart pounding. He shook his head after a moment. "Just the wind. But they'll be searching. My father won't give up easily. What will he do if he finds us?" Cyprian's expression grew grim. "He'll kill me for my defiance. And you," he hesitated. "He'll bind you to him. Force a blood bond that will make you little more than a puppet. A living chalice he can drink from at will." Horror crawled up Eulalia's spine. "Can he really do that?" "With most humans, yes. With a source." His gaze sharpened, studying her. "I'm not certain. You might be resistant to our influence." "Might be. There's one way to find out." He took a step toward her. "I can try to compel you to influence your mind. If you can resist me, you might be able to resist him." Eulalia backed away. "You want to mind control me, to prove I can't be mind controlled. I want to see if you have a natural immunity. It would explain how you've sensed Lucian watching you when most humans would remain oblivious." Another step closer. "I won't force you, but knowledge is protection." Her back hit the wall. Cyprian stood before her, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the coolness radiating from his skin. "What would you make me do?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Something simple, harmless." His eyes held hers. "I would ask you to give me your hand." She swallowed. "That's all?" "That's all." He lifted his hand, palm up, waiting. "May I try?" After a long moment she nodded. Cyprian's pupils dilated, swallowing the iris until his eyes were black pools. His voice, when he spoke, resonated with a strange harmonic, as if multiple voices layered beneath his own. "Eulalia Koval, give me your hand." The command slid over her skin like silk, seductive and compelling. A whisper in her mind urged her to obey, to please him. She felt her arm twitch, wanting to rise, But beneath that whisper came another sensation, a resistance, a core of self that remained untouched by his influence. She recognized the compulsion for what it was, external, foreign, not her own desire. She kept her hands firmly at her sides. Cyprian's eyes widened, returning to normal. "Extraordinary," he breathed. "You felt it, didn't you? But you didn't obey." "I felt something, like a suggestion." She frowned. "Is that how it works for most people?" "For most, it's irresistible. They feel it as their own desire, their own thought." A smile touched his lips, genuine and warm. "You truly are a source. And more, you have the resistance that comes with it." Relief flooded through her, followed by a strange pride. She wasn't just prey. She had power of her own. "So your father can't control me either?" Cyprian's smile faded. "Thaddeus is far older, far stronger than I am. His compulsion might be more difficult to resist. And there are other ways he could bind you. Blood rituals, ancient magics." He moved away, giving her space. The loss of his proximity left her oddly bereft. "We should rest while we can," he said. "Dawn is still hours away, but we'll need to move again tomorrow night." "Where will we go?" "There's a place in the mountains. A stronghold where others like me gather, vampires who reject my father's ways. A vampire rebellion." Despite everything, Eulalia felt a flicker of amusement. "Something like that." His answering smile was wry. "Though we prefer resistance." He gestured to a narrow bed against the far wall. "You should sleep. I'll keep watch." Exhaustion suddenly weighed on her like a physical thing. The events of the night, the revelation of Cyprian's nature, their flight from the mansion, everything she'd learned, crashed down upon her. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her legs no longer willing to support her. "What if they find us before dawn?" she asked. "They won't." Cyprian's voice held absolute certainty. "And if by some chance they do, I won't let them take you." She believed him. Despite everything, the fangs, the inhuman speed, the centuries of difference between them, she trusted him. The realization should have frightened her, but instead it brought a strange calm. Eulalia lay down, not bothering to remove her shoes. The bed was hard, the blanket scratchy, but her body didn't care. Her eyes drifted closed almost immediately. She woke to darkness and the sensation of being watched. Cyprian stood by the window, a silhouette against the night sky. The fire had burned low, casting the cottage in shadows and red-gold light. Outside, wind whispered through the trees. "How long did I sleep?" she asked, her voice thick. 6 hours. He didn't turn. "It's nearly dawn." She sat up, wincing at the stiffness in her neck. "Is something wrong? Someone's out there." His voice was flat. "They've found us." Fear jolted through her, fully waking her. "Your father?" "No, not yet." He turned, his face grim. "Rowena Varkos, Lucian's sister. Another vampire." "Yes, and a skilled tracker." He moved from the window, crouching beside the bed. "She's alone, which means she's either scouting for the others, or she's come to warn us." His expression was conflicted. "Rowena and I were close once, before I broke with my father." Jealousy flared, unexpected and sharp. "Close." A shadow of a smile crossed his face. "It was a long time ago, and it ended badly." He rose. "Stay here. I'll speak with her." "Cyprian." She caught his arm. His skin was cool beneath her fingers, but not as cold as before. The fire's warmth, perhaps, or something else. "Be careful." He covered her hand with his own. "Always." He slipped outside, silent as a shadow. Eulalia crept to the window, peering through a gap in the shutters. The clearing was bathed in pre-dawn light, grey and diffuse. At its edge stood a woman, tall and elegant in a long black coat, her hair a cascade of dark curls. Cyprian approached her, stopping several yards away. They spoke, their voices too low for Eulalia to hear. The woman, Rowena, gestured emphatically, her movements graceful, even in agitation. Cyprian shook his head, his posture rigid. Suddenly, Rowena's head snapped toward the cottage. Her eyes, even at this distance, gleamed with an unnatural light. She'd sensed Eulalia watching. The vampire woman moved with blinding speed, appearing at the window in an instant. Eulalia stumbled back with a cry as Rowena's face pressed against the glass, beautiful and terrible, lips curled to reveal delicate fangs. "So this is the source," she hissed, her voice penetrating the cottage walls. "This is what you betray us for, Cyprian. This fragile thing." Cyprian materialized behind her, yanking her away from the window. "Enough, Rowena." The female vampire laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "You think you can protect her? Thaddeus has summoned the entire clan. Lucian is already on your trail." "Then why are you here?" Cyprian demanded. "To gloat." Rowena's expression shifted, something like pain crossing her features. "I came to warn you, you fool, because, despite everything, I don't wish to see you destroyed." She glanced toward the cottage again. "Take her and go. Now, the mountains are your only chance." "We can't travel by day," Cyprian said. "The sun will be obscured. A storm is coming." She pointed to the horizon, where dark clouds gathered. "It will buy you hours if you're lucky." Cyprian studied her face. "Why help us, Rowena? What does Thaddeus offer that makes betraying him worth the risk?" "Perhaps I'm tired of being second to Lucian." Her smile was sharp as a blade. "Or perhaps I remember when you were kind to me, when no one else was." She stepped away. "Go. I'll lead them south, away from your path." "Rowena, don't." She cut him off. "Just remember this when the time comes." With that, she vanished into the trees, a blur of movement too fast for human eyes to track. Cyprian burst into the cottage, his face taut with urgency. "Pack whatever food you can find. We leave in 5 minutes." She was telling the truth. Eulalia asked, already moving to obey. "About the danger?" "Yes." He gathered a few items from around the room. A knife, a small book, a pouch that clinked with what might have been coins. "About her intentions, that remains to be seen. You don't trust her." "I trust that Rowena always acts in her own interests." He paused, meeting her eyes. "But she's right about one thing. The mountains are our best chance." They left as the first heavy raindrops began to fall. The storm rolled in quickly, turning the pre-dawn light murky and dim. Thunder rumbled overhead as they moved through the forest, Cyprian setting a pace just slow enough for Eulalia to maintain. "How far?" she gasped, after what felt like hours of climbing steadily uphill. "Another 8 miles to the foothills," he said, not even winded. "Then 5 more to the entrance of the stronghold." "I can't." She stumbled, caught herself against a tree trunk. "I need to rest." Concern flickered across his face. He glanced at the sky, barely visible through the canopy of trees and storm clouds. "We don't have much time. The storm won't last forever." "Just 5 minutes," she pleaded. He nodded reluctantly. 5 minutes, no more. They sheltered beneath a massive oak, its branches providing some protection from the rain. Eulalia sank to the ground, legs trembling with exhaustion. Cyprian remained standing, scanning their surroundings, every line of his body alert. "Tell me about this stronghold," she said, trying to distract herself from her aching muscles. "Who will be there?" "Others like me. Nightwalkers who believe there's a better way than predation and fear." He glanced down at her. "Some are very old, others newly turned. All have rejected Thaddeus's rule. And they'll help us? They'll help me, he corrected. You they'll be curious about. A source is something most have only heard of in legends. The implication sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the rain. Will I be safe there? Cyprian crouched beside her, his eyes intense. You have my protection. No one will touch you without your consent. He hesitated. But I won't lie to you, Eulalia. Your blood, it calls to our kind. Being surrounded by vampires will be dangerous, no matter their politics. A crack of thunder shook the forest. Cyprian's head snapped up, nostrils flaring. What is it? She asked. Blood. His voice was tight. Someone's injured. Close by. He helped her to her feet. His grip firm but gentle. They moved cautiously through the trees, toward a small clearing where a figure lay crumpled on the ground. As they approached, Eulalia recognized the dark curls, now matted with blood. Rowena. The female vampire's coat was torn, revealing deep gashes across her torso. Her eyes fluttered open as they knelt beside her, focusing with difficulty on Cyprian's face. Ambush, she whispered. Lucian knew I would warn you. Save your strength, Cyprian said, examining her wounds. You'll heal. Not from this. She coughed, black blood staining her lips. Silver-edged blades. Poison for our kind. Eulalia watched in horror as the wounds seemed to spread, dark veins radiating outward from each gash. Why? Cyprian demanded. Why risk this for us? Rowena's laugh was a wet, terrible sound. Not for her, for you. Her hand clutched at his sleeve. He's coming, Thaddeus himself. He knows where you're headed. Cyprian went still. How? Renfield. The name came out as a hiss. Your father's human pet. He's been watching the stronghold for months. Eulalia saw the shock on Cyprian's face, quickly replaced by cold fury. Go north instead, Rowena gasped. The old hunting lodge, remember? Her body convulsed suddenly, back arching in pain. Cyprian, I'm sorry. For everything. Her form began to change, skin turning ashen, then translucent. Beneath it, Eulalia could see her veins blackening, her very essence seeming to dissolve from within. Rowena, Cyprian started, but it was too late. With a final shudder, the female vampire's body collapsed in on itself, crumbling to ash before their eyes. Within seconds, nothing remained but a dark stain on the forest floor, quickly washing away in the rain. Cyprian remained kneeling, his face a mask of grief and rage. Eulalia touched his shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles. I'm sorry, she said softly. He rose in one fluid motion. We need to move, now. The stronghold is compromised. His voice was flat. We go north, as Rowena suggested. Can we trust her information? You said yourself she always acts in her own interest. Her final interest, it seems, was defying my father. He looked down at the place where Rowena had died. She paid for it dearly. They set off again, changing direction, moving through the increasingly dense forest. The rain grew heavier, turning the ground to mud that sucked at Eulalia's shoes with every step. Exhaustion dragged at her, but fear kept her moving. How much further? She asked, after what felt like an eternity. Not far now. Another mile, perhaps less. The trees thinned suddenly, revealing a steep hillside. At its crest stood a structure, a hunting lodge, just as Rowena had said. Built of dark wood and stone, it loomed against the storm-dark sky like a fortress. Almost there, Cyprian encouraged, taking her hand to help her up the slippery incline. They were halfway up when a figure appeared at the top of the hill, silhouetted against the clouds, tall and imposing, with shoulders like a bull and hair as white as bone. Cyprian. The voice rolled down the hillside like thunder. My wayward son, How predictable you remain. Eulalia felt Cyprian's hand tighten around hers. Father, he said. The word like ice. Thaddeus Blackwood smiled, revealing fangs that gleamed even in the dim light. Did you really think Rowena's little deception would fool me? I've been waiting for you. More figures appeared beside him. Lucian, his scarred face twisted in a predatory grin, and others Eulalia didn't recognize. They spread out, blocking any path to the lodge. There's nowhere left to run, Thaddeus said, his golden eyes fixed on Eulalia. Bring me the source, Cyprian, and perhaps I'll be merciful. Cyprian pushed Eulalia behind him, his body a shield between her and his father. You'll have to kill me first. Thaddeus sighed, a sound of exaggerated patience. If necessary. He gestured to his followers. Take them. The vampires descended like a wave of shadow, flowing down the hillside with inhuman speed. Cyprian's arm shot out, catching the first attacker by the throat and hurling him aside. Another lunged, fangs bared, only to be knocked back by a brutal kick to the chest. Run, Cyprian shouted. His voice strained as two more vampires grappled with him. Eulalia stumbled backward, her boots slipping on the wet leaves. A scream tore from her throat as Lucian appeared beside her, materializing from the mist like a nightmare. His scarred face twisted into a cruel smile as he reached for her. Not this time, she gasped, drawing the silver dagger from her boot. The blade flashed as she slashed wildly, catching him across the forearm. Lucian hissed, recoiling as smoke rose from the wound. The momentary distraction was enough. Eulalia turned and ran, not up toward the waiting Thaddeus, but sideways along the hillside, seeking any path through the encircling predators. Behind her, Cyprian fought like a demon, his movements too fast for human eyes to follow. But there were too many. For every vampire he threw off, two more took their place. She could hear his growls of frustration turning to sounds of pain. Stop! Thaddeus's voice boomed across the hillside. Enough of this foolishness. The attacking vampires froze, still holding Cyprian. Blood streaked his face, his shirt torn to reveal deep gashes across his chest. He struggled against their grip, but even his strength had limits. The source comes with me, Thaddeus continued, striding down the hill with casual confidence. You had your chance, Cyprian, decades of chances, and still you defy me. Eulalia pressed herself against a tree, the rough bark digging into her back. Her heart hammered so violently she felt dizzy. The silver dagger trembled in her hand, a pitiful defense against what was coming. She is not yours to take, Cyprian spat, blood dripping from his lips. Thaddeus laughed, the sound echoing through the trees. Everything is mine to take. That is what it means to be king. He turned his golden eyes to Eulalia. Come, child, your blood is wasted on him. With me you could help forge a new era. Don't listen, Cyprian warned. He'll drain you dry. A sharp blow from one of his captors silenced him. Thaddeus extended a pale hand toward Eulalia. I offer you a choice. Come willingly, and your lover lives. Refuse. He shrugged elegantly. Well, you've seen how this ends. Eulalia's mind raced. The lodge was still tantalizingly close, perhaps 200 yards up the hill. If Rowena's information was correct, safety waited within those walls. But with vampires blocking every path, she'd never make it alone. Unless... I'll come, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. But I walk beside you, not as your prisoner. And Cyprian comes too. Thaddeus's eyebrows rose. You bargain like one who holds power. His lips curled into an amused smile. Very well, a final walk together, before the inevitable. He gestured, and the vampires holding Cyprian loosened their grip slightly, though they didn't release him entirely. Eulalia stepped forward, keeping the dagger visible. As she passed Cyprian, Their eyes met. She gave him the slightest nod, praying he understood. Such devotion, Thaddeus mocked, falling into step beside her as they continued up the hill. It's almost touching. Did he tell you about the others? The humans who came before you, who trusted him just as blindly? I know everything, Eulalia replied, her voice low. About the curse. About what you did to his mother. Thaddeus' smile faltered. Ah, so he shared the family secrets. How intimate. They crested the hill, the hunting lodge looming before them. Up close, it was even more imposing. Ancient stone foundations supporting dark timber walls, with narrow windows that gleamed like watching eyes. The massive oak door stood partially open, as if inviting them in. After you, Thaddeus said with mocking courtesy. Eulalia hesitated at the threshold. Something felt wrong. The door shouldn't be open. Had Rowena betrayed them after all? Move, Lucian growled, shoving her forward. She stumbled into a great hall dominated by a stone fireplace, large enough to stand in. Mounted animal heads stared down from the walls, their glass eyes reflecting the dim light. The air smelled of dust and wood smoke, and something else. Something coppery and sweet. Blood. A figure lay crumpled by the fireplace. Eulalia gasped as she recognized Rowena's silver-streaked hair, her elegant clothes, now stained crimson. Did you think I wouldn't know my own daughter's betrayal? Thaddeus asked conversationally. She always was soft-hearted, like her brother. He nodded toward Cyprian, who was being dragged in by his captors. Cyprian's eyes widened at the sight of his sister. Rowena, he lunged forward, only to be yanked back brutally. She lives, Thaddeus said, dismissively. For now, her fate, like yours, depends on what happens next. He turned to Eulalia. The blood moon rises in minutes. We've wasted enough time with these games. He gestured, and two vampires seized Eulalia's arms, wrenching the dagger from her grasp. She struggled, but their grip was like iron. Father, stop this madness, Cyprian pleaded. The old ways are dying. We could find another path. Silence. Thaddeus roared, his composure cracking. The old ways are all that keep us from becoming animals. The source blood is our birthright, our salvation. He stalked toward Eulalia, his golden eyes blazing with hunger and something else. Fear, perhaps. Fear of a changing world that had no place for creatures like him. The ritual circle, he commanded. Now, they dragged Eulalia toward a far corner of the hall, where the floorboards had been pulled away to reveal an ancient stone circle embedded in the earth. Symbols carved into the stone began to glow with a faint red light as they approached. The moon rises, Lucian announced, looking toward a high window where the first crimson rays of the blood moon were beginning to shine through. Eulalia felt the moonlight touch her skin like a physical caress, sending a strange tingling sensation through her body. Her blood seemed to sing in her veins, responding to the celestial power. Thaddeus noticed her reaction and smiled. You feel it, don't you? The connection, the power. Your blood knows its purpose. They forced her to her knees in the center of the circle. The stone was cold beneath her, but the symbols pulsed with warmth, the red glow intensifying as more moonlight filtered into the room. Across the hall, Cyprian renewed his struggles, fighting with desperate strength against his captors. Leah, he shouted. The symbols, remember what I told you. Thaddeus backhanded him viciously. Enough! You've lost, my son. Accept it with dignity. He turned back to Eulalia, drawing a ceremonial knife from within his coat. Unlike her silver dagger, this blade was obsidian, its edge wickedly sharp. The ritual is simple, he explained, his voice taking on a formal cadence. Your blood, freely given or taken by force, will restore what time has stolen from us. The weakness, the hunger that never ceases, all will be purged. And I'll die, Eulalia stated flatly. Thaddeus shrugged. A small price for such a gift. The moonlight grew stronger, bathing the circle in crimson. The symbols beneath Eulalia began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She could feel their power reaching into her, seeking the ancient magic in her blood. This was what Cyprian had warned her about. The ritual circle would amplify the power of her blood 100-fold, enough to break the curse, but also enough to kill her if too much was taken. Thaddeus knelt beside her, the obsidian knife gleaming in his hand. Your wrist, if you please. No, she met his golden eyes without flinching. You said freely given or taken by force. I choose the first. Confusion flickered across his face. Offer your blood willingly. Yes. She held his gaze, but not to you. Before he could react, she turned towards Cyprian. To him, I give it to him. The ritual circle flared blindingly bright. The ancient magic, awakened by her declaration, surged through the room like a shockwave. The vampires holding Cyprian were thrown back, their grips broken by the force of the spell. No, Thaddeus lunged for her, the knife slashing down. Eulalia rolled aside, the blade missing her by inches. She scrambled to her feet as chaos erupted around them. The mounted animal heads on the walls began to shake, their glass eyes glowing red. Wind howled through the hall, though no windows were open. Cyprian was on his feet now, moving with renewed strength. He caught Lucien's arm as the scarred vampire attacked, twisting until bones snapped. Lucien screamed, falling back. Stop them, Thaddeus commanded, but his followers hesitated, unnerved by the magic pulsing through the lodge. Eulalia ran towards Cyprian, dodging grasping hands. The ritual circle's power followed her, red light streaming from her footsteps like comet trails. Cyprian, she called. The blood bond now. He understood immediately. As they reached each other, he caught her in his arms, spinning to place his body between her and the others. Are you certain? He asked, his eyes searching hers. Yes. She tilted her head, exposing her neck. I choose this. I choose you. The room seemed to hold its breath. Even Thaddeus paused, watching in disbelief. Cyprian lowered his head, his lips brushing her skin. I will never betray this trust, he whispered. Then his fangs sank into her flesh. The pain was sharp but brief, quickly replaced by a flood of sensation unlike anything Eulalia had ever experienced. Heat rushed through her body, followed by waves of pleasure so intense she would have collapsed if not for Cyprian's arms holding her upright. The ritual circle's light surrounded them, spinning faster and faster until it formed a crimson tornado with them at its center. Through the whirling light, she could see Thaddeus's face contorted with rage and fear. Stop! He screamed, hurling himself toward them, but the magic held him back. With each beat of Eulalia's heart, with each drop of blood that passed from her to Cyprian, the bond between them strengthened. She could feel him inside her mind now, his presence warm and protective. Asterisk enough, asterisk his voice said in her thoughts. Asterisk any more would harm you. He lifted his head, his lips stained with her blood, but it was his eyes that transfixed her, no longer the dark brown she knew, but blazing gold like his father's. The eyes of a king. He turned to face Thaddeus, still holding Eulalia against his side. It's over, father. The source has chosen. Impossible, Thaddeus hissed, but doubt had crept into his voice. He could see the change in his son, the power that now radiated from him. The old laws are clear, Cyprian continued, his voice carrying a new authority that seemed to resonate with the very stones of the lodge. When freely offered and accepted, source blood creates a bond that cannot be broken, not even by you. The remaining vampires looked uncertainly between father and son, sensing the shift in power. "I am still king," Thaddeus roared, but his voice held a desperate edge. "No longer." Cyprian raised his hand, and the ritual circle's light gathered around it, forming a glowing sphere. "By the ancient rites, by the power of freely given source blood, by the witness of the blood moon, I claim my birthright." He hurled the sphere of light at his father. It struck Thaddeus in the chest, exploding into tendrils of crimson energy that wrapped around him like chains. He screamed, a sound of rage and disbelief that shook the rafters. "I don't kill you," Cyprian said, his voice cold, "but I banish you. From these lands, from our clan, from any claim to the source or her blood." The magic responded to his command. The tendrils tightened, lifting Thaddeus off his feet. His body began to dissolve, turning to mist that swirled and contracted, until all that remained was a small, dark shadow that fled through the cracks in the walls, howling in defeat. The remaining vampires fell to their knees, heads bowed in submission to their new king. Eulalia swayed, suddenly light-headed. The ritual's power was fading, leaving her drained and weak. Cyprian caught her before she could fall, lifting her into his arms. "Rest now," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "It's finished." She wanted to speak, to ask about Rowena, about what would happen next, but exhaustion pulled her under. The last thing she saw was Cyprian's face above her, his golden eyes filled with a tenderness that followed her into dreams. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. She lay on a bed covered in furs, in a room she didn't recognize. For a moment, panic seized her. Had it all been for nothing? Then she saw him, sitting in a chair beside the bed. Cyprian, alive and whole, watching over her as she slept. The wounds from the fight had healed, leaving no trace. "How long?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "A day and a night." He moved to sit beside her, taking her hand in his. "How do you feel?" She considered the question. The weakness remained, but beneath it was something new, a sense of connection, of being anchored to him across distances. "Different," she finally said. "But not afraid, not anymore." She touched her neck, finding 2 small puncture marks nearly healed. "And Rowena, recovering. My father's attack was meant to incapacitate, not kill. She'll be herself again soon." Eulalia nodded, relieved. "And the others? Your father's followers?" "Some fled after his banishment. The rest have sworn allegiance to me." A shadow crossed his face. "There will be challenges ahead. Not everyone will accept the changes I intend to make." "What changes?" His golden eyes met hers. "An end to hunting humans. An end to the old cruelties. A new covenant between our kinds, starting with us." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm. The simple gesture sent warmth flooding through her, awakening the bond between them. "The blood we shed," she said softly. "What does it mean for us?" "It means we're connected now and always." His voice deepened. "It means you're mine to protect, and I am yours to command. But what happens next?" He hesitated, suddenly uncertain. "That's for you to decide." Eulalia sat up, ignoring the lingering weakness. She reached out, tracing the line of his jaw with her fingertips. His skin was warmer than before, some of her human heat now living within him. "I decided long ago," she whispered, leaning forward until their foreheads touched. "When I first saw you in that alley, something in me recognized something in you. Like finding a piece of myself I never knew was missing." His arms encircled her, drawing her closer. "Eulalia," he breathed, her name a prayer on his lips. Outside, the world was changing. News of Thaddeus's fall would spread. New alliances would form. New threats would arise. The path ahead would not be easy. But in that moment, as the morning light painted the room in gold and the ancient bond hummed between them, none of it mattered. They had found each other across centuries of waiting. They had chosen each other despite impossible odds, and in that choice was all the magic they would ever need.